welcome back to Wholehearted Homemaking. My name's Heather, and here I share a little bit about motherhood, homemaking, and homeschooling. My last few videos have been homeschool, Charlotte Mason focused. Today I'm coming with a little something different. Today I want to talk to you about gardening. I love gardening, and it is something that just brings me joy. It is a lot of work. I have been gardening for over 10 years and still feel like I am a newbie. I do not know all the tips and tricks. I am not selling any resources because I don't have something that I love. It is something that we do with as little cost as possible. But our garden has been a blessing to our family in the harvest that we get from it. But it is a blessing to my soul to just get out in the garden. And so today I thought I'd share real quick kind of how I go about planning and what that looks like for me, who is a busy mom who has a lot of things going on, and how I go about that. The first step in gardening is kind of a really exciting step. You don't get your fingers dirty. You're not buying anything unless you're buying books. But that's the dreaming part. And that dreaming part can look different for whatever it is you're planning. Maybe you want a flower garden, whatever it may be, maybe a vegetable garden, orchard, I don't know. But you start by dreaming. And so for me, I have a little garden journal that I keep. I don't update it very well, but I try. And it has a list of like my dream garden, if I could have everything, this is what I would want. And I come up to that by looking through books, looking online, obviously, and looking through seed catalogs. I start earmarking all the things. Oh, this would be beautiful. I love this. That would look tasty, whatever it may be. Then I have to get down to reality. And so I make a list of all the things I want to grow this year. And then I have to narrow that down even more after that to what can I practically afford and have space and time to maintain this year. And so then I start making my list. And so that's the first stage, is that dreaming and planning it out, figuring out what it is you want to actually grow. Maybe you realize after some digging in books and seed catalogs, you don't want to grow tomatoes. You love zucchini and you want to eat zucchini all year long. So you're going to focus on that. Whatever it may be, you just narrow it down to what you want and are able to afford and maintain. The next thing after you've made your plans, you know what you want to do, is you need to start plotting it out. And this will change your plans too, most likely, if you're like me. Maybe you can do these simultaneously. I can't. I have this beautiful Juniper Grove journal, and I just ordered one of their bullet journals and had it labeled as our garden journal, which is wonderful. It has like a little page number at the bottom, and it has a table of contents at the beginning. And so that's really helpful for me with my planning, but I also try to write other things down in it throughout the garden season. But I plot out our garden space. Now, we are blessed with a large garden space where we live, and so I am able to spread it out. But you can kind of see how we have grown. So when we first moved here, the very first time, my husband built me 3 raised beds right here. Then the next year, we added a small space over here. The next year, it expanded and expanded. This is up against the shed. These are out there. This is actually all expansion for this year, as is this part is expansion for this year. Every year, I just add a little bit more. And so I plot it out, and then I start figuring out spacing and what exactly I want. There are much more intelligent garden people out there who can give you information on how to space, how to companion plant, all of that. All I do is take the information that I've gotten on YouTube and in books, and I place it out for myself. And so that helps me know, okay, maybe I don't have the space for 30 tomato plants. That's just not going to work if I also want to grow green beans. And so now I got a big picture of what I want my garden to look like. You'll have to get outside and measure and kind of figure out what you want to do. But that is the next step, is you really want to plot things out and know that you do have a space. It's always better to have a little extra space that you can add something in later, like an herb or a small flower, rather than to overwhelm yourself and then now you have no place to put these plants. Take it from experience. The next thing you do is plan how you're going to start. There are a couple of different ways to start. You could do some seed starting where you start in the house with little start trays, You do it in milk cartons, whatever, and you can start them in your house, or maybe you have a greenhouse. They have these pop-up ones now. That was not an option for us this year. Another option is winter sowing, where you take a milk jug or something clear like that and you plant it, cover it so it has a small opening in the top so water can get in, and you put it outside all winter and it slowly grows. And we've done that in the past, and I usually do that. I have a lot of milk jugs in storage for that. However, again, due to life circumstances, that was not an option for us this year. And then there's direct sowing, the old-fashioned way, right? Where you just put the seed in the ground. And that's what we're doing this year. We haven't actually done that in a long time for most of our crops. I always do that with some crops because some don't transfer well and whatnot. But this is the first time in many, many years that I've direct sown all of my seeds. And you need to plan that ahead of time. What am I going to do? How am I going to get these plants grown? So now we've dreamed, we've plotted it out, we figure out how we're going to sow. Now we're ready to do what most people think of as the first step. All right, now we're ready to start getting our hands dirty, right? Well, you need to make sure if you're planting from seed and not starts, you need to kind of do it early, especially if you're going to be particular. I ordered seeds in March and I could not find a particular tomato variety that I was looking for. So just be aware that if you are wanting a specific variety, that you need to shop early, December, January, which is insane. But any old seed will work, generally speaking. We have bought our seeds from 2 different places this year. And that is only because of availability and also simply because that was where we could find decent prices. So I got primarily MI Gardener. I have bought Baker Creek seeds in the past, and I had about 50-50 rate of actual germination, and so I wasn't super impressed with them. Most of them did well. It was probably more like 70-30, but I did have several that just didn't grow, and so that was kind of frustrating. And I found out that MI Gardener is a little bit cheaper, and so I went with them. They're also a little more local for us because we're in Indiana. Michigan doesn't feel so far, and so I got from MI Gardener, and I have just a ridiculous amount of seeds from them. They were well priced, they look great, and they come in these little packs. They have all your information there on the back. If you go to MI Gardener here on YouTube, you can find all kinds of information. They are a wealth of knowledge. I've watched most of their videos. It's really helpful. The other place I went is a local plant store. We have a local plant store. It's about 45 minutes from us, but it's at the other end of our county. And we buy plants from there because they're locally grown, but we also buy seed from them because a lot of times they will do local seeds. Not always, but a lot of times. And that's called Cox's, Cox's Plant Farm. So if you're in Hendricks County or surrounding area, that's where we go. And they have such amazing prices. So these are tender sweet coreless carrots that I bought last year. You can see maybe that my package is a little dirty, and they are still good, but they were $1.25 for a tablespoon of carrots. Okay, this is more than a tablespoon. I think you can see there. That is more than a tablespoon of carrots, and it is, they're wonderful. I also get spinach, pea. I get the early crop season ones from them. Partially because I ordered these and wasn't sure if they'd get in time, but also because I like to get them local if I can. And so these are, what are these? Peas. And so I have these to grow and then be planting them later this week. But that is where we do the seeds, right? Now we're ready to plant them. So if you're doing winter sowing, you're obviously doing that much earlier. If you're doing seed starts, you probably should have started a couple weeks ago. Maybe now is a great time to start. It's not too late. If you are like me, we have our last frost date is technically April 15th, but in general, people do not plant until after Mother's Day is kind of the rule. It's what my deacon, who's a farmer professionally, tells me is Mother's Day is kind of the rule there. And so there's a few early season crops that we'll plant, but otherwise we'll wait until then. Now, there are many ways with you got your seeds and you're ready to plant. If you're doing it in the ground, you really need to prepare the ground. Tilling is amazing, but we did not have access to a tiller for many years and we were still able to plant in the ground. It's a little more back excruciating. You break out the hoe and you do that. I still use the hoe old-fashioned way much of the season because our tiller does not work well when the dirt is moist, and it doesn't really dry out until mid-May, if that, because of our low-lying ground. And so we do a lot of by hand hoeing it out, unless it's a new space. But that still works, but you do need to prepare your ground, get it ready. If you're going to fertilize or compost, you need to do that ahead of time, and then you're ready to plant. You do have to kind of prepare your ground and then figure out what you're going to do with weeding, and you need to prepare your time. That's the biggest thing I think I forget a lot of times in garden season is that I need to prepare how much time this is actually going to take. And it's taken me a while to get there, that to know that I can't do a lot of gardening in the late afternoons when my babies are napping because it's so hot in the middle of the summer. It works well in the spring, but in the summer it's not so good. I also have had to learn how to space my time with nursing babies because there's nothing worse than being covered in dirt and sweaty and then you have to nurse a baby. And so I have to plan my time accordingly to that. And it's something I've developed over time. You'll learn a little bit as you go. And I shared in my homeschool rhythms, I even changed our homeschool schedule to accommodate garden season. And we use that same schedule all year because it has worked so well, so that I do a little bit with them at first. Then I go work out in the garden in the cool of the morning for about an hour. And then I'm able to get cleaned up and come in and do the rest of the school things with them. They can come and join me in the garden and read to me, narrate, do whatever we need to do. But I can get my work done while I'm out there. And then I can come back again after lunch and finish up any work I need to do, whether it's harvesting in the morning and then weeding in the afternoon or vice versa, whatever it may be, planting. It's all, I try to fit it in those two little frames and spread it out throughout the week so I'm not out there for hours and hours all day, one day, or whatever it may be. And so we do try to plan and budget our time and balance it with all the other tasks that we have in our life. I've met a lot of people who have started gardening and then stopped or backed off because of the time commitment. And the thing is, you have to really be committed to gardening, especially if you do large gardens like I do, because it's not just the planting and the weeding that takes time, but it's the harvesting, it's the watering during a drought. It's all those little things that add up over time, and you have to really be passionate about it and enjoy it. There's this quote by David Hobson that says, "I grow plants for many reasons, to please my eye and to please my soul." And truly, gardening does please my soul. Even when it's backbreaking, even when I'm covered in sweat and dirt, I love it. It brings me joy. And what's amazing is I have seen my kids start to join me out in the garden more and more over the years. And they find the joy in it too. I love having my kids in the garden. Now, I do have a couple who don't enjoy it, and that's okay. Each person has their own preference. But gardening and finding that balance of time while including my kids has helped so much. Next week, I want to share a little bit about how I approach gardening with kids and what we call garden school, because we do make it part of our schooling, though I don't actually write any of it down usually, but I'm going to for you guys. And so including the kids in the garden is another way to balance out that time that you're spending outside doing all those things. The other thing to consider is that you're going to be using your spring, your summer, and your fall, which if you're a homeschooler, spring and fall are peak seasons for schoolwork and summer is your break. So you have to realize you may be sacrificing part of that time, and you need to know what is your priority. And like I said, if you give it a go, I have a feeling that most of us are going to find that pleasure in our soul just being in the dirt. That's the basic gist of it. Start dreaming, making your plans, looking through those seed catalogs. Then you're going to go out and see what space you actually have available. Start plotting it out, see what you can plant. Then you're going to figure out how you're going to start your seeds, order those up, definitely. And also start planting if you're doing any winter or seed starts. Then you're going to start planting in the ground as soon as you've got it prepared and you're past your frost date. You can check those out anywhere, type in your zip code, and it tells you what your last frost date is. And then it's maintenance mode, right? And that's that, finding that balance of time and balancing out planting season and weeding and taking care of maintenance during the summer, and then harvesting as it goes by, and just figuring out how you're actually going to use all the things that you've planted. That's another step. But the last thing really is just finding that balance of time. You really want to make sure you're using your time best, especially if you're a busy mama like me, you're a homeschooling mama. You got a lot on your plate, and the best thing you can do is to think ahead of time and be prepared. Things are always going to fall outside of your plans, but make a plan so that you do know, okay, this is how much time I need to give to this task. And if you're worried about spending time away from your kids, get them in the garden with you. Next week, I'm going to be sharing about our garden school and how I get my kids in the garden with me. So I hope you'll tune in for that. Thank you so much for watching. Let us go forth and strive to serve our families and the Lord wholeheartedly.